Hey guys, you made it to our composition lesson. All right. This composition lesson is going to be able to help you guys understand and to be able to successfully create a melody and a chord progression for your exercise 1 and 2 for composition this week, okay? Now, this week what we're going to be concentrating on is probably the most important aspect of composing as far as understanding things and getting to know how to do things, which are intervals, okay? We're going to talk about intervals in just a second because that's what we're doing today, but we should already have an understanding of what intervals are just from what we've been doing during the school year with our instruments, okay? Now, without that taking up too much time, let's go ahead and get to our lesson, okay? Now, intervals. We have intervals, 2 types of them, melodic and harmonic intervals, okay? These intervals are going to be for us to basically divide into 2 categories. One is melodic and the other is harmonic, okay? Part 1, we're concentrating on melodic, which is our exercise 1 for the week, okay? Now, everything that I say here, what I will tell you guys is that you will have a questionnaire to answer after you're completed with exercise 1. Okay, it's going to relate to what I'm saying here in this lesson. So make sure you guys get a good understanding of what is happening, okay? If you do not understand, please stop by my office hours. They're every morning between 9 and 10:30 in the morning, okay? I will tell you, it is important that you guys stop by, all right? However, let's keep going. Melodic intervals, okay? Melodic intervals. What is a melodic interval? A melodic interval is what you get when you play 2 notes separately, okay? One after the other, okay? That is what a melodic interval is, all right? If you notice the little picture to the right there, what it is it's a note and another note, okay? Now, we're going to talk about the relation to between those notes. For example, if you look at the picture to the right, the first notes that are there are the same notes, okay? Those are what we call unison, or what we can basically label as 1, okay? 1, or unison, okay? Now, if you look at the next one, okay? And I'll actually zoom in on this picture in just a second, but the note is going from a line to a space, okay? That is a second. That goes from 1 to 2 up. Well, 1, 2, second interval, okay? Then if it goes line, space, line, that's 1, 2, 3, we have our third interval, and it goes up and up and up, and keeps actually going up, okay? So how do we basically find this? If you look at the next point there, to find intervals between 2 notes, just find the pitch of the first note. Remember, left to right is reading just like a book, and then you start counting up. So you count, remember to keep 1 there, 2, 3, or whatever interval you're going to, okay? So just to zoom in, okay, when you look at a melody, the second picture there too, a melody, you're going to have a melody going up and down. They're composed of intervals, which is the distance between notes, okay? Now to zoom in just a little bit, if you look here, unison, like I said, together. If you notice, you got to count line, space, or space, line, to get that interval, okay? Intervals can go up, and intervals can go down. And down, you remember, you're going from left to right, you're reading it in that way, okay? So just make sure you understand what is happening, okay? Just keep that in mind when you're comparing the 2 notes there, okay? Just keep that in mind. All right, so going on to the next part, scales, okay? Once we have intervals, okay, we have a series of notes or intervals that come together to make a scale, okay? Now, if you look at this picture, scale 1, we're talking about that unison. Unison 1 equals same note, okay? 2, we're going from line to space, okay? So 2. Then we're going to line. And remember, you're always comparing it. We're going to compare it to that 1 always, okay? So 1, then we go up 3, up 4, up 5, up 6, up 7, up 8, which 8 is what we call an octave, okay? Which is the same note, just basically the same pitch, just higher. Okay, so this is our scale. This is basically the foundation of what a melody is. It's the series of notes in a certain key that gives us what we need for the melody. Okay, now once we have scales, okay, which you guys are going to have a reference sheet for this for your exercise 1. Okay, you're going to have a scale here. You're going to go ahead and use that as a reference so you know which notes you're going to be placing. Okay, once we have a scale, our scale can sound one of actually many ways, but for right now we're going to know 2 ways, okay, of how things sound. Now when I talk about sound, I'm talking about tonality, okay, which is major and minor tonalities, which is major scale and minor scale. Okay, major scale usually sounds happy. Okay, usually sounds very, very happy. It's upbeat. Well, it can be upbeat. It can be a slower tempo as well. But a major scale, happy. No, more or less happy. Okay, a minor scale usually tends to sound more sad. Not as happy, not as uplifting as a major scale. Okay, now the interesting part about this is if we look at the 2 scales, they're exactly the same notes. You don't have any sharps or flat notes for C major or A minor. Okay, they're the same notes. However, it is played just in a different order. So C starts from C and goes to C again, but A starts on A and it will end on A as well. That's what makes it different. Okay, that's what makes it different sounding, is those starting notes. The starting note is going to be the most important for your piece. Okay, so when you're picking what you want to do, tell me, are you picking a major or a minor scale that you're going to be working with here? All right, so tonality, we have that scale turning into a certain sound. We're building up our melody here. All right, now some examples of major songs. Okay, the first one I thought of was Black Eyed Peas, which it sounds like this. I really like this song for the reasons. It's not working either, but I really like this song. Okay, go ahead, check it out on your own time. I put the links there for you guys to be able to watch. Go ahead and watch it. That's an example of a major song. Now, a minor song, all right, is going to be, for me, I thought of Bill Withers. He just really recently passed away, which is it's a shame. But this song is one of my favorite all-time songs, Ain't No Sunshine. Okay, you guys will probably recognize it. All right, these are both examples, one of a major and one of a minor, basically melody song piece. Okay, next, what I'm going to go and show you guys is actually, after we have our basically idea of what we're going to sound like, we have to come up with some melody. And the melody moves, right? This doesn't stay put. You don't have one note being the entire melody. It's just not a melody, right? So we have to have some motion. And what we call that is melodic motion. Okay? And what we have is we're having 3 steps. I like to include skips in mine. Technically it's steps or leaps, but I like skips too. A step is a line note steps into the space right above it or below it, or a space note steps in the line right above it or below it. It moves just one down or one up. Okay. A skip is when a space note skips over one line and goes to the next space above it, or vice versa. Okay. So if you see there, it skips up, goes there. I like skips. And a leap is where it's separated by more than one line or space. That's where I like to call a leap. Technically, people don't put that in. It's either steps or leaps. I like to put that there. So that's when you hear me talk about the motion. Okay, you're gonna hear me use these terms. All right, this is for you guys to know what I'm talking about. So now that we have some ideas of emotion, we're gonna talk about getting into the flow of things. So the motion, we have 2 types in general. Okay, we have conjunct and disjunct. Okay, if you kind of look at the word, con means like with. If you speak Spanish, it means like you're with something. this means you don't have it, okay? So it's without or it's not, all right? Not together. So conjunct melody. Melody rises and falls with only small changes between one note and the next. If you look at the conjunct motion over here, it's not going pretty far. It's going from one, it's going maybe a little bit. You'll see it skips from line to line, but other than that, it's just going one note after the next, okay? Now, disjunct is melody moves by large, basically skips or leaps. It goes pretty far. So if you look, we have kind of a little bit of a just one note to the next, and then all of a sudden it goes down, and you see that with the blue. Okay, the blue is going to be what is disjunct. That's why it's labeled blue and red for those lines. Okay, so it goes up here, blue, 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 twice. Okay, but it is moving a lot. So that's the motion we have. This is the disjunct motion that we see here. It just goes here, it leaps. Okay, so that is what we're going to be talking about with your overall pieces as well. Is it more, does it have more conjunct motion in it, or is it more disjunct motion? Okay, that's going to be on the questionnaire. So next, after the motion, after we figure out what motion we have, okay, I want you guys to listen to these examples. Conjunct, one of the pieces you guys have pretty much all played, okay, and it gives you a little hint by the Beethoven dude over there. All right, that is very, very, it doesn't move so much, okay. Now, an example of disjunct motion, which I don't know why this song always gives me a heart attack, I think because it just leaps and does craziness, is a song by the Sherman Brothers, which are very, very famous composers. They're brothers, and you'll know why, okay? Once you click that song there, you'll know why they're famous, okay? And you can comment too on that. If you want to tell me in the comments why they're famous, or where you know them from, or whatever, do that. I want to know what you guys can come up with, all right? So listen to those examples. So as we start getting and as we start moving, our melody takes shape, okay? Now, like I was saying before, if we played the same notes over and over again, or the one note, the music wouldn't be as good. Wouldn't create really a melody so much, okay? But as we start going, our music is going to start taking shape, okay? And that is called the contour, okay? It's the shape of the melody, okay? Now, the words that we can use to describe the direction or shape of the melody are rising, ascending, falling or descending, or arch shape, and there's actually a good amount more that we can describe, okay? And if you look at the table here that I have, these are the motions, okay? You can have an ascending melody, which is boop, 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 goes up, or a descending melody that goes down, all right? You can have an angular, like just whoop, goes up, 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 down, just goes craziness. You can have a static, which doesn't do too much. It holds on to the same note most of the time, which is what a lot of pop songs do nowadays. There's static motion so much. You can have an arch where it goes up and then down, or you can have a wave where it goes up, down, up, down, and creates a wave, okay? Some waves being larger than the others, some waves being smaller, okay? So you guys keep these in mind when you're creating your song, okay? And also as part of the question, you guys are going to be answering whether you think your piece is ascending, descending, angular, static, arch, an arch melody, or a wave type, okay? So, motions, all right? Now that we have our motions, what we're going to do is we're going to come up with, the range, okay? So, another part of a melody, since we have that motion, is considering a range for our music. And range is the scope of a composition from the lowest note to the highest note. A narrow range has few notes in between each other, and a larger range has a lot of notes in between each other, okay? Sometimes a large range, yeah, it might sound like cool going to a really low note to a really high note, but sometimes that's not the best, okay? Sometimes it's good to fall in the middle between something that is has a low range, or a medium range, I should say. In general, you should try to stick to a medium range, but sometimes we can go outside of that, and it's up to you. It's preference, okay? But you guys are going to tell me if your range is more wide or narrow, okay? I'm not going to leave a medium. I want to see what you guys think with either these two types of range, okay? So wide or narrow range, okay? These are two examples of a wide and a narrow range. Go check them out. Queen, one of my favorite bands. You're going to like that. The other one is a little bit of an older song. You guys might not know it so much. It's Cats in the Cradle. It's a good song. I would check it out and just basically compare the two maybe, all right? So, after we have all of those qualities, we now come to our melody, okay? Now, our melody, just to tell you guys, so basically just in general what we've been talking about, now condensed into one sentence. It is a timely, arranged, linear sequence of pitched sounds that listeners perceive as single entity. Now, I wish that kind of sounded like a Doctor Who reference there, but what this is saying is basically it's a series of pitches that are rhythmically moving throughout basically whatever is being sung or played. And my example that I had down here is Yesterday by the Beatles. Okay, the Beatles to me are one of the greatest groups of all time, and one of the reasons why is because they do such a fantastic job on creating their melodies. Okay, if we look at the melodies here that we see for Yesterday, and if you guys click the link here, you can listen to Yesterday. What you're going to see is you're going to see basically 2 eighth notes to start, a half note, eighth notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, rest. Eighth notes, eighth notes, eighth notes, quarter note, eighth notes. Okay? They do a really, really good job of creating that melody rhythmically, and on top of it, look at them. They go up, kind of stay in the middle, stay there, then go back down. And that's like a cool little wave that they have going on. And that's why I think their songs do pretty well too, okay? So, what makes this melody so good? I was just talking just a little bit about it, and I want you guys to question that. Don't just take my opinions. I want you guys to ask yourselves that question right now. What makes them good? What makes the melody good? And as you guys think about that, I'm going to comment on the Beatles. Ringo's my favorite. He's the guy all the way to the left. I don't know why I like him so much. Paul McCartney in the middle there. And those two are the only Beatles that are still alive today. But, fantastic music. All right? Now, what makes a melody good? You can ask many people what makes a melody good, and everyone will give you a different answer. I'm not 100% correct when I say my answers either. People debate what makes it good, okay? To me, and if you see me in the corner, it depends on the listener of the melody. But to me, a good melody is when you can still hear the melody after the song is ended. I'll tell you countless times, I've basically gone home from class and basically kept going bum 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 over and over again. That's a good melody. That's a good melody right there, right? It's what sticks in your head, okay? And to me, when I think about that, I think about 3 things. I think about it's simple but interesting. It's a range that works. It's a range that everyone can sing. It's a range I can sing, you can sing, we all get in our heads. And pieces that rest at the right spot, okay? Bum, bum, bum. That little rest there, a little pause, keeps you on the edge. It's like, wow, what's going to happen next? Okay? So, those to me are what make a great, great melody. All right? And just some things to keep in mind, some tips and tricks to make you guys be able to create a good melody. Think of your melody as a question and answer, or maybe even as a tension and release of the song or of your melody. Okay? Question and answer is usually a good amount, a very good way to think about it. But it's up to you, okay? But what I want you to do too for your probably your final question on the questionnaire I'm going to give you is tell me, is your piece repeating? Is it varied, or is it contrasting? Okay, so repetition repeats the material to create a link between phrases. Okay, so when you have an idea, are you playing the exact same thing over again but with a different ending? If so, that's what repetition is. Variation, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be creating very, 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 I would say you would create a piece or you create a melody and then change it up, but keep maybe one part of that similar. Okay, that would be varying it. Okay, or keeping maybe the ending a little bit similar by changing the last note. Okay, that would be variation. And contrast, two different phrases are completely basically different. Okay, and it might cause tension, or why repetition might be boring. A lot of you guys were thinking in your melodies when you're composing them about the contrasting idea that you have to keep going, and then end it. Okay, not necessarily. You don't have to do that. Okay, you can go ahead and create your melodies with repetition or variation. It doesn't have to be a whole long thing. Okay, now with that, you guys are going to complete your exercise 1. I'm going to go on to basically part 2, which are harmonic intervals now. All right, so when we came from our melody, now we're going to harmony, which is going to be our chords. This one I'm going to basically breeze through. I'm not going to spend so much time on this because I want you guys to explore with this, okay? And don't be afraid to ask me questions about what's happening, okay? So harmonic intervals, this is part 2, all right? Harmonic intervals. Harmonic intervals, what you get when there's 2 notes played at the same time. So the same exact time, boom, harmonic intervals, one note. Does it sound good or does it not sound good? I guess you can do as well. That's a harmony. How notes interact with each other playing at the same time. All right. Now, to find the interval between 2 notes, or how we basically put them together, is if you look at the little picture to the right, it's kind of like our intervals that we talked before, however, at the same time. Okay. If you have a line to a space, that's a second. If you have a 1 or unison, it's just the same exact note. Okay, so we didn't even put that there. If you have a third, it goes from line to line. You count up line, space, line. That's 3 notes. Boom, boom, boom. Third. Go to a 4th, 5th, so on and so forth. Okay, I only have up to a 5th here because a 5th is what we're going to be needing to know in making a chord. We're going to need to know our first note, which we're starting on, our 3rd note, and our 5th note, which we'll talk about that in a second. But again, if you look at the point below, how you find that is by putting your basically note, the starting note, the lowest note, and counting up like I just said, okay? Now, chords. A chord is going to be 3 or more notes that combine together harmoniously, okay? Now, what we're going to be taking a look at first is just taking a look at the 1st, 3rd, and 5th intervals playing at the same time. All right, and over here I have this presentation here for you guys, so you can go back to it and look. These are going to tell you all the notes you need to know in order to play that chord. Okay, so go ahead, take a look at this. These are the chords that we're going to be looking at. Okay, so combining those 3 notes. Next, there are a whole bunch of types of chords. Okay, major, minor, diminished, major 7, minor 7, dominant 7, suspended, augmented, and extended chords. We don't need to know all those. There's only 3 chords we need to know right now, which are major, minor, and right now diminished, okay? A major chord, just like our basically major scale that we're going to have, tends to sound happier, while a minor chord tends to sound sad, or in this case, unresolved, all right? And a diminished chord, basically it sounds suspenseful, incomplete, and it needs to be resolved or finished, okay? Which we're going to be looking at how all these chords interact with each other one after the other too, okay? And that's what you guys are going to be exploring this week. Labeling chords, okay? How we label chords is like this: major, minor, diminished, like I said, but whichever the starting note or starting chord is, starting note is, for example, C, if we have that C, C, E, and G, that equals a C chord, Okay. Our next note, which is this our 1, C. Then we have our 2, which is D diminished. Our G is D minor. Don't know why I'm losing it. E minor, which is going to be our 3. Our 4 is going to be F. 5 is going to be G. 6 is going to be A minor. And then we have our B diminished. Okay. B diminished, that's a funky chord. Okay. If you're composing your song, if you want a funky chord, that's the funky chord. Okay. Now, we label these as Roman numerals. You're going to see me do that, and you're going to actually need to know the Roman numerals, not know it, but understand it for the next part that we're going to talk about, which is how, basically, what's the easy way of composing these chords, okay, as a progression. The term chord progression, it simply refers to the order in which the chords are played in a song or a piece of music, okay? So, if you look here, this is an example of a progression. You have 3 notes on top of each other, they're moving, they're changing. There's the Roman numerals down there which represent a different chord. These are for you just to see it and feel how a chord progression is supposed to look. And lastly, in making it easy for us to kind of understand, what we're going to do is we're going to have a map here, okay? You should always, actually not always, you should pretty much always start on a 1 chord, okay? And the 1 chord, which in this case, if I go back here, oh, wrong one, too far, overshot it. Our 1 chord here is going to be C, okay? So our 1 chord, we're going to start on C. Then we get to choose wherever we go, okay? Wherever you go, you pick, you see if it sounds good. Then if you go ahead and say, okay, I want to go to 3, your 3 chord, you follow the arrows, okay? Follow the arrows. Your 3 chord can go to a 6 chord, which can either go to basically a 4 or a 2 chord. But if you want to go from 3 to 4, you can do that. All right? You follow the arrows, they'll help you, okay? And a 4 chord, follow the arrow, can go to a 2 chord, or it can go to either 5 or 7. It's up to you, okay? Follow the arrows, use this. This will be very, very good tool for you guys to use in making it easier for you guys. And lastly, even just to make it easier, if you don't want to follow this chord thing, if you don't want to make up your own chord progression, which I challenge you guys to do that, there are some chord progressions for you guys to use, okay? They're here. I'm going to put the PowerPoint online as well so you guys can see it, but they're for you guys to look and use, okay? Don't be afraid. Use it. That's why it's there, all right? So, with that being said, you guys now have the tools you guys need to go ahead and complete that exercise number 2 in our composition. Go ahead, get started, okay, guys? You guys have now exercise 1 and exercise 2, a melody and chord progression. And with that, let's get to composing, all right?